All right, so get ready, because today we're diving into a story that really flips the script on something you might think you know.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're looking at excerpts from a fictional work, and it asks this really wild question. What if Lucifer tried to save Jesus from the crucifixion?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting premise for sure.
I know, right?
About it.
So,
Where do we even begin with that?
well, I think what's so captivating is that this whole story uses, like, this fictional world to kind of reimagine these figures that we think we know, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
And it just explores these huge themes. Love, sacrifice, rebellion,
Yeah, no, it's really interesting how it takes those familiar themes but puts a whole new spin on them.
totally. And, full disclosure, this isn't your typical, like, oh, the devil wants to rule the world scenario.
Right.
The Lucifer we encounter here, he's driven by something completely unexpected.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Yeah.
So he's not like the evil, malicious figure we usually imagine.
Not exactly. The story drops us right into the action in the Garden of Gethsemane,
Okay.
where Jesus is preparing for what's to come.
Right.
And Lucifer approaches him, but not with, those typical evil intentions you might expect.
That's fascinating. So what's his angle?
Well, there's this one line that really stood out to me. I cannot believe that such a love would demand the agony of one so pure, so blameless. It's like Lucifer is, I don't know, almost heartbroken for Jesus.
Wow. That really does challenge our preconceptions about him.
It does, and that's the twist. Lucifer's motivation, it all comes from witnessing Jesus about to suffer.
So it's not about power or control, it's about trying to prevent suffering.
It seems like it, yeah. And it really makes you think, is this even really rebellion if it's driven by compassion?
That's a great question. Like, are there different forms of rebellion? Some that are fueled by darker things, and others, like in this case, that are about wanting to protect.
Exactly. And the story dives headfirst into that. Lucifer doesn't just, passively disagree. He rallies other angels, questions God's plan, and presents this whole other perspective on love.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's starting a compassionate revolution.
That's quite the image.
It is.
Yeah.
And he even says, I do not ask you to defy our Creator, but to question what it means to love, to believe that love does not demand suffering.
It's like he's saying, hey, maybe we've gotten this whole divine love thing wrong.
Exactly. And by framing his rebellion as this form of love, the story throws this massive moral dilemma at us.
Oh, I see it. Is he wrong for trying to protect Jesus? Can there be different ways to understand divine love?
Right. And then, of course, we get the clash that just had to happen, the confrontation with Michael.
Oh yeah, Michael, the archangel, known for upholding heaven's order.
The ultimate defender of heaven's order. So you've got Michael representing that, upholding that divine plan no matter the cost, and Lucifer arguing for compassionate intervention.
Oh, that's so interesting. It's like those classic debates. Tradition versus conscience, following rules versus following your heart.
Yeah. And their dialogue is so intense. At one point, Lucifer says, I learned that to question is not to betray. Love demands that we see clearly, that we do not blindly accept what causes suffering.
Powerful stuff.
Right. Like he's arguing for critical thinking, even when it comes to faith.
He's basically saying blind faith isn't enough. We have to engage our minds and our hearts, even when it's hard.
It's like he's saying, look, just blindly accepting things, especially when they lead to suffering, that's not true love.
It's a bold statement.
Absolutely. And it's this unwavering conviction that drives him.
Yeah.
He doesn't just debate with Jesus. He pleads with him to escape his fate.
He's willing to risk it all.
And it culminates in this incredibly emotional line, then let me stand beside you. Let me bear even a fraction of your pain. He's literally offering himself up.
Wow, that's a really striking image. He's not just talking, he's willing to put himself on the line.
Yeah, and you really see his vulnerability there, Despite his defiance, you feel his love for Jesus, his helplessness, knowing what's coming, and this huge inner conflict he's going through.
It definitely paints a different picture than the typical evil Lucifer we might imagine.
Doesn't it? It really makes you question those easy categories of good and bad that we often apply.
It humanizes him in a way.
It does.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, is there this part of him that still longs for connection, for understanding, even if it means going against heaven?
It's like he's saying, if loving Jesus means rebelling, then that's what I have to do.
Exactly.
And that brings up a really interesting point. What happens when your sense of love and loyalty are in direct conflict?
Right. Where's the line?
Yeah. Where do we draw that line between obedience and compassion?
That is the question. And this story dives right into that.
It does.
It's not just a black and white situation.
Right. This is a Lucifer who's wrestling with some pretty intense feelings.
Exactly. This isn't your stereotypical villain. This is someone who's acting out of his own sense of love and justice, even if it might be misguided.
It's really making us rethink everything we thought we knew about him.
And about love, rebellion, and maybe even forgiveness.
That's a great point. We've only just started scratching the surface here.
Yeah, there's so much more to uncover about what drives him, how this all plays out, and what it means for everyone involved.
I'm ready to keep digging.
Let's do it.
So Lucifer's story, it doesn't just begin in Gethsemane, you know?
Oh, right.
The story actually takes us back to when he first finds out about God's plan for Jesus.
Yeah, it's like we see his concern kind of transform into action.
Exactly. He doesn't just, sit around and complain.
Mm-hmm.
He starts trying to actually do something about it.
That's what I love about this story.
Yeah.
It takes that classic image of Lucifer, the rebel, the embodiment of evil, and it just flips it on its head.
It does. He's rebelling out of love, out of this sense of justice. I mean, can you imagine?
It makes you wonder if the author's almost trying to get us to sympathize with him a little.
It's like we're seeing the internal struggle behind his defiance,
Yeah, like he's not doing this for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
He's so passionate about protecting Jesus.
He's like, this isn't right. This shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how he starts to influence other angels, like drawing them into his cause.
Oh yeah, like Azazel.
Azazel, exactly. Starts out so by the book, fiercely loyal to heaven's order.
Total rule follower.
Yeah, but even he starts to question things when he hears Lucifer's perspective.
It's like Lucifer plants this little seed of doubt.
And it just grows.
It really makes you think, how often do we just accept things without really questioning them?
All the time, probably.
I know I do. And then there are those scenes with the secret meetings, where they're all debating God's plan.
Oh yeah, those late night gatherings.
It's like they're this underground group planning a compassionate revolution.
Plotting in the shadows.
And you can really feel the tension, especially when Michael finds out what they're up to.
Uh-oh. That can't be good.
Right, because he's all about upholding that divine plan.
He's the enforcer, right?
Yeah, and it's got to be tough for him. Seeing Lucifer, someone he's close to, going down this path he sees is dangerous.
Like watching a friend make a bad decision, but on a cosmic scale.
And when they finally confront each other, whoa, it's electric.
I bet. What happens?
It's like this clash of worldviews, blind faith versus critical thinking.
Intense.
Right. Michael's accusing Lucifer of leading everyone to ruin, and Lucifer's arguing that true love requires questioning.
Like if you really love something, you don't just blindly accept everything about it.
Yeah. And it reminds me of all those big philosophical questions, free will, obedience, what's right and wrong.
The big stuff.
And even when Michael threatens to step in, Lucifer doesn't back down.
He's committed to this.
He is. There's this one line where he says, "Let my love be judged against my defiance, and let whatever follows be what the universe needs to see."
He's putting it all on the line.
He's basically saying, I'm willing to face the consequences because I believe this is right.
That takes guts.
It really does. And, it makes you think twice about how we label Lucifer. Evil, fallen angel, all that.
It's more complicated than that.
Yeah, way more. He's not just a villain. He's someone who's driven by his own sense of love and justice, even if it's leading him down a dangerous path.
So the story's not giving us any easy answers, is it?
Nope. It's making us ask the tough questions. Can a rebellion come from love? Can defying authority be a form of faith?
And can love ever really be wrong, even if it means breaking the rules?
It's all about perspective.
And about different ways of understanding love, right?
Exactly. For Lucifer, it's about protecting, about shielding the people he cares about from pain.
Yeah, even if it means going up against, God.
But for Jesus, it seems like it's more about accepting his fate, even if it means suffering.
That's a tough one to wrap your head around.
And then you've got Michael, whose love seems to be about loyalty and obedience to a higher power.
So many different angles.
And they all clash in this amazing way. It's like these different facets of love are interacting and creating this explosion of conflict.
It makes you wonder, who's the real good guy here?
That's the point. There aren't any easy answers.
And it's not just external conflict, right? We also get to see inside Lucifer's head.
Totally. We see his doubts, his fears, his love.
He's not just this, rebellious robot.
No, he's got real emotions.
Like in that scene where he shows up during the,
the procession to Calvary.
Yeah, that one. Where he begs Jesus to escape, even offers to take on some of his pain.
That scene just tears at your heart.
It's like you can feel his desperation, his helplessness.
And it shows how much he cares.
But Jesus, he accepts his fate.
Which is the complete opposite of what Lucifer's trying to do.
It's like they have completely different understandings of what love means.
But you know, it's crazy. Lucifer eventually accepts defeat.
Really?
He realizes he can't force Jesus to choose a different path.
That's got to be hard for him.
But it's also this huge moment of humility, you know? He recognizes his own limitations.
So it's a defeat, but not entirely.
Right. Because then, when Jesus is being crucified, Lucifer feels this wave of forgiveness from him.
Wait, what? Forgiveness?
Yeah, he feels this sense of peace that he hasn't felt in ages.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that's where things get really interesting.
How so?
This grace, this unexpected forgiveness, it throws everything about Lucifer's identity into question.
Yeah, if he's accepting this from the very being he defied, can he still be Lucifer the rebel?
Exactly. And it suggests that maybe redemption is possible, even for him.
That's powerful.
It's like a glimmer of hope in all this darkness.
I love how the story leaves us hanging, you know? It's not like everything's suddenly perfect.
No, there's still consequences.
Right. Lucifer caused a rebellion. There's fallout from that.
Forgiveness doesn't just erase everything.
It's more like a fresh start, a chance to change.
Which brings up the big question. What does all of this tell us about love and forgiveness?
It goes beyond Lucifer's personal journey.
It really does. It makes you think about how complicated love can be.
It's not always pretty, right?
It can be messy, defiant, even destructive.
But there can still be love in those things.
And maybe that's what's so amazing about forgiveness.
Renew.
It's not about saying those actions were okay. It's about giving a chance for change.
A chance to grow.
Yeah. And this story pushes us to think about, like, how far forgiveness can go.
If even Lucifer can experience it.
Right. Where does that leave the rest of us?
What about forgiveness in our own lives?
Wow. This deep dive has been a whirlwind.
It has.
We started with this wild what if and ended up exploring all these big ideas.
Love, rebellion, forgiveness, and the possibility of redemption.
This made me think about these things in a whole new way.
Me too. And it leaves us with this question that just lingers. If Lucifer, the ultimate rebel, can be touched by grace, what does that say about the limitless potential of love and forgiveness?
Okay, so we've got Lucifer, heartbroken, but also touched by this grace right at the moment he thought he'd failed.
Yeah, it's like, where does he even go from here? How do you process that?
I mean, he's built his whole identity around being the rebel, defying heaven.
And now he's experiencing forgiveness from the source he rebelled against.
It throws everything into question, right?
Definitely. Like, can he even be Lucifer the rebel anymore?
It's like, does forgiveness require some total transformation? Does he have to become someone totally different?
Well, the story does mention this spark of redemption.
Right.
So it hints at that possibility.
Yeah, but it's not like, poof, everything's fine now.
Oh, absolutely not.
There's still all this fallout from his actions.
He led a rebellion. Things are messed up because of him.
Yeah, forgiveness doesn't just wipe the slate clean.
It's more like, okay, now what? What do you do with this second chance?
So I guess the bigger question is, what does this whole story tell us about love and forgiveness in general?
It's pushing us to think outside the box, that's for sure.
It's like, love isn't always this perfect, happy thing.
Sometimes it's messy, right?
It can even be destructive. But even in those moments, there can still be love at the core of it.
And forgiveness, it's not about saying everything's okay. It's about creating space for change.
Giving people a chance to grow.
And recognizing that everyone has the potential to evolve, even those who've messed up big time.
Like Lucifer.
Yeah, if he can be touched by grace.
Makes you wonder about the limits of forgiveness. Like, how far does it actually reach?
Both on a human level and a divine one, you know?
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. This story just throws out all these huge questions.
It really does. And, you know, this whole deep dive has taken us to some unexpected places.
Definitely.
We started with this crazy what if about Lucifer trying to save Jesus.
And now we're contemplating the nature of love, forgiveness, redemption.
And the power of questioning, challenging our assumptions.
Exactly.
It's made me think about these things in a way I never have before.
Me.
And ultimately, it leaves us with this question: if even Lucifer can be touched by grace, what does that tell us about the boundless nature of love and forgiveness in the universe?
It's a powerful thought to sit with.
It really is. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our deep dive for today.
Thanks for having me. This is an incredible conversation.
It was my pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find that grace has a way of showing up in the most unexpected place.
you.